You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Braeden Rangno. Producing, mixing, or engineering, Braeden pockets Rangno, does the same thing every time. Bring him a song and he'll crack it open to the heart, expose the seed of emotion at its core, and lure or drag it into the light. Braeden wants nothing more than to find passionate musicians and make them sound good. From his Vibe Cave studio in Vancouver, Canada, Braeden works with local and remote clients in an eclectic set of genres spanning from stoner psych rock to salsa dancehall fusion and plenty more. He's had records nominated for the Breakout West Awards and the Polaris Music Prize, though he hasn't won any yet. Braeden actually became friends with me on Facebook recently. He found the show and enjoyed it. And then I saw him post a bunch of really cool stuff, like converting telephones into like microphones and all this, and like some other neat videos. And I just reached out to him. I was like, dude, you got to come on the show. And he's been gracious enough to join us. So welcome to Secret Sonics, Braeden.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So tell us a bit about your history, your story. Like, how did you get into music? How did you get into production?
Yeah.
Where did it begin for you?
I started playing sax in high school. A lot of people will pick up an instrument, when they go there, at least, grade 8, grade 9 in Canada. And you can kind of just go from there. So I started playing sax because I'm the only person out of 30 kids that could make a sound on it. I'm like, cool, this is mine now. And I held on to that. But I wanted to be a geologist since I was like 8. And then I was playing in bands and doing my own small thing and kind of being a hack player. And I got into my first year of university, and all for like geology setup. Here's my course, and I hated it. Like it was a total about face, and I'm like, oh, I just kind of like rocks and exploring and stuff. This was fun to learn about, but crap, what else do I want to do? So I was kind of looking around for something else, and I was playing music a bunch and kind of getting a little bit into the recording side with a buddy, kind of doing demos and stuff. And I heard about a school in Vancouver. I'm from Vancouver Island, which is like a little 2-hour ferry ride away. And moved over to like, yeah, well, it's like it's a fairly large island, but it's like got but yeah, I just kind of went from a much smaller town to Vancouver, which is, a way bigger city. And part of it was definitely for a girlfriend I had at the time that we broke up 3 months after I moved there. And then I was stuck in Vancouver doing music in this program, and I kind of just went head first. So like I was still trying to play and sing and be in bands and stuff, but more just growing towards making other people sound good, because I just started to realize I had kind of other skill sets in there that was awesome. And at some point I just kind of seized on it, like this is my main thing. You mess around for a while and you're kind of doing some recordings and kind of figuring out how to be an engineer or producer. And at this point I was fed very much like an assistant engineer's mentality, like, oh, you're going to start like cleaning toilets and stuff, which is fine. And I definitely did some of that as well. But it's, there's a million different ways to be a producer. In this day and age, there's 100 different ways to run a studio and be successful. So I started just trying more of it, and got into my studio that I'm in right now about 6 years ago, and started up a small partnership with another buddy into a bigger space that I could work out of, so I'd have like a larger facility to go and do drums. And at some point I just decided, like, screw it, this is it. If I can't make the entirety of my living off of this by the time I'm 30, I'm going to quit. I'll do something else. This was fun. It was a neat thing, but I fully planned to, like, I'm going to go retrain at 30 if I'm not doing what I need to instead of struggling. And at 29, I'm pretty stoked to be, this is my full-time gig. It's my income. I've got a bunch of different things I'm trying to do to keep it diverse. From some of the sync stuff with Mark Eckert and That Pitch, which was freaking awesome, to just doing more.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize you were involved in that.
Just,
nice.
Mark's been awesome to kind of watch and see him grow. At first, I wasn't really sure what the heck I was watching, because he's like an amazing animated dude, and I wasn't sure if like my BS meter was going off or not. And then I'm like, nah, this guy's super legit. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah. He's a consummate entrepreneur. Like, that guy knows how to build a business.
Right. Totally. I know he's legit because I'm friends with his brother-in-law. So
Oh, crazy.
it's a very small world. His brother-in-law and his sister live in Israel. So I know.
Oh, that's wild. Cool.
Yeah.
So it's just like where was I? Yeah, I was just trying to do a lot of different things at this point. I'm trying to like keep the production and stuff going in more of like the modern sense of being able to do remote and make songs for people. I started mostly doing like band recordings. Like I'm going to track this band and help them produce a record in that classic style. And now it's a whole bunch of both. I'll be kind of holding writing camps for one of my artists, and trying to bring a whole bunch of, artist development to her, and then just switching over and doing a ton of mixing. And yeah, it's just, it's grown. And I'm so happy.
Do you like that mix of all those different things that you're involved with? Or do you like tend to gravitate towards one in particular? Do you have like one that's like a super passion?
Are you talking genre-wise or like job-wise?
Job-wise, yeah.
At this point, I really like just straight up mixing. I'd love to be able to kind of do that full time, but working with artists and getting like the main performance out of them is so gratifying. I don't think I could ever really give that up. So I'm kind of working towards a point where I can say no to projects and people I know that isn't quite right for me and take on the ones that I can like really dig in with. Like that Dom Freakout track I sent you. That dude is one of the best songwriters I've ever come across. And he lives in Germany now, actually, and is doing a bunch of promotion for like a homeless shelter initiative for his next track that we did together, which is cool. So he's like, he cares and he's got a soul.
Wow.
So being able to work with him, and I've got a very much a no booth mentality, like no vocal booths. If you need a vocal booth, you might want to find a different producer. It sounds, I know that sounds very crazy, and I'm happy to make spaces for people, but I need to do the way I do my job in coaching with artists, at least how I've kind of figured it out lately, is they need to be beside me. And Dom was sitting like right here with his acoustic. I'm hovering in my chair, trying not to make any noise, but just like focusing on, the authenticity that he's giving me. Because if we're like, okay, that's a fake emotion, we got to do that again. Like, come on, they're gonna. That
track. That track is legit. What was the name of it? Because I just only listened to it now. Curse of Too Many Options.
Yeah.
Wow. I just like opened that track up and I was like, oh my God, this track is next level.
Yeah. Thank you.
The guy's voice is next level. It's just like, oh man, this is like $1 million production. That was like I was like, this is, and it was simple. It was like just, yeah. That was like the last song I listened to of the stuff you sent me before we jumped on the call. So yeah, and I totally feel that. I love also, I've only ever had like a one room studio where just, you could just see even now behind me, like, I just had like my vocal mic up today, and
and it's a vibe.
I don't know anything else.
It's a vibe. That's just how I like to work. And I'm really fortunate at this point that I've got the career and the job and the business going at this point where I can be a little bit more strict about that. And I've gotten more respect and more artists reaching out to me for it because I've got the hard line. I'm trying to be flexible as heck for all of my people. Like I want them to have a best time. Like, this is a service industry. I'm doing the job for you. If there's something I'm doing that you don't like, tell me and I'll figure it out. But hopefully you're coming to me for the reason because you've seen, some of the way I work with artists. And that's kind of why I post a lot of that stuff as well, is just like, here's my style of production and working with a person. If you just want someone to hit record for you and go, that's cool, but that's really not where I have any interest in. I want to be able to like work dynamically with you, even if it's like a rapper. Like, it sounds kind of, if you've somebody just kind of getting a hold of you off of Google or Facebook or something like that and saying, yeah, I want to lay down 2 hours of some bars and stuff, but look, let them do it. But by the end of it, it's like, cool, if you have interesting stuff, let's do this again. But like, hey, I've got thoughts on the way you perform some things. Hey, I've got some thoughts of your arrangement on stuff. Do you want them? Maybe. Depends on how good of a job I did with like, our session today. But, some people don't care.
Yeah. It's funny how you said, like, even though like you love mixing, probably the most, like, you need to get, little production chops in as well, because it kind of lights the fire. I totally relate to that. I guess I've been more niching into mixing recently, but then my friend asked me to do a remix of one of his songs and I got like super into it. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. Like, and just doing the production end of stuff, just like really gets things going again. I don't know.
And that comes through in your end product. Like that enjoyment of the process has to be there. Because it otherwise, again, it just comes off as disingenuous. Even if it is a super pop track about partying and, having bottles in the club, it doesn't matter. That hype partiness has to come through and has to be there. So even, again, you're still stoked on a remix, it gets you going, follow that passion, it's probably going to be awesome. If you're someone who hates producing artists in the room, which I have some buddies that are great behind a laptop, but are not very good at working with a vocalist and getting the most out of them, let's team up, because you're going to be stoked on the track. I'm going to make your vocalist stoked, and we're going to end up with a better end product than like a half and half thing that you're struggling with. Yeah.
It's also interesting how there's so many different types of producers, and you kind of mentioned this. Is like I'm trying to remember who it was, but someone recently on the show. So there's like 3 types of producers, basically. There's the kind that, the Rick Rubins, where they kind of just sit in the back of the room and they let the band do their thing. Mm-hmm. And then there's the ones that kind of just like, program a beat and send it off to whoever's, recording it or whatever, recording the vocals on top of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's the ones that kind of hold, the artist's hand and like work together. And that's like the singer-songwriters or whatever. And I guess that's what I have the most experience doing. And there's something rewarding about that.
Hugely. And some people find their niche and they absolutely go for it. I'd like to try and think I can kind of do all 3 and just know when and who to do it with, because you have to know when to Rubin and you have to know when to handhold. And if you call it wrong, then that person's not going to want to work with you again, even if the music's fantastic, because that's just how some artists are. But when I was starting to come up with, I was going through school, there was a section we had on like psychology, basically, of working with artists. And we watched.
That sounds really smart.
It was genius. Everyone cried. It was ridiculous. The teacher, Tamara, who's just a wonderful woman, really was able to make a whole bunch of people open up really quickly. So we watched Some Kind of Monster, the movie about Metallica. We watched Devil and Daniel Johnson, who's a phenomenal singer-songwriter, but who passed away a couple of years ago, but I'm not sure exactly what it was, but he was definitely a bit of an unstable guy, and I really wish I knew better what he had, but he's got he had some mental difficulties, phenomenally,
like maybe bipolar or something,
possibly,
like that.
Phenomenally talented person, and just needed to have the right space for him. He was not like disabled. He was phenomenally talented, but you had to know how to work with that kind of creative versus, or like, Lars versus James Hetfield in Metallica, coming off of years of drugs, now like coming into a very strict lifestyle of trying to create for a few hours in the studio and be sober and not have any of his outside influences that was hurting him. So we were able to kind of navigate, here's some extremes of creatives that you're going to find, and you need to know how to work with them if you want to like do this production job. Because that's
amazing that
valid.
They even had that in the, in school, because I feel like nobody talked about this, and it was just something that, like, I don't know, I guess me and my peers have figured out over the years. It's like there's just a ton of psychology involved in this gig.
Oh yeah,
but I didn't know. It's crazy that was being taught.
Yeah, it's great. And again, we're talking about just vindication and justification. And when you hear others talk about it, your conversation with William Bowser was like, yeah, I'm doing a huge amount of psychological work with these people to make sure that I figure out what's going on. That's kind of like my other main job besides just being an engineer.
Yes.
And yeah, you've just got to know how to work with them. That's pretty much it. If you're trying to just do the straight technical stuff, there's a space for you. But in this day and age, if you don't know how to work with people, if you're not a people person, you're going to probably have a hard go.
Yeah. I feel like that's maybe like the number one thing to like have in mind when you go down the journey of like being in production.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to get along with people. So how do you find artists? Or how do artists find you? How do you get people in the studio? How do you get work?
Yeah. At this point, it's a bunch of different avenues. A lot of it's just straight up word of mouth. Looking at people like Mark Eckert and Daniel Grimmett more recently has been phenomenal for building my larger base of community and networking, which is something I was always like conscious about, but I'm a little bit of a homebody. Going out there for larger meets and stuff I wasn't too into, but knowing how to kind of spread yourself and just be there. Don't just be a lurker of stuff. Like if you're going to comment on or be a part of a Facebook group that's doing legitimate cool stuff, like, make pop music or something,